we're back. These videos do really well for us. All 32. We're gonna go through. We did this in the leading up to the season where we went through all the teams. What we're gonna do this time around is obviously the worst team in the NFL, the whole way up to the team who won the Super Bowl and the Eagles. So with that being said, the first team that we're gonna go to is the Tennessee Titans. Worst record in the NFL this season, 13 and 14, 3 and 14. And I think this
27
team,
games.
I think this team was sneaky, not awful at times, but Will Levis single-handedly lost him a ton of games. He stinks.
He's not good. I think we kind of knew that coming into this season, but I also don't love the team that's around him. I thought going in that they did a decent job of putting some talent around him, like Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, having Tony Pollard at running back. Like, didn't think it was going to be that bad. They drafted J.C. Latham to play tackle.
I love J.C. Latham still. Don't care what anyone says.
I agree. I think he'll be fine. It was the highs with Will Levis were like okay, and the lows with Will Levis were just really low.
Really all-time low.
But yeah, I don't know. 3 and 4. It seems like they were in more games than not. But like I'm running through this right now. They lost 1, 2, 3, or no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games by one possession.
That's what I mean. Like, and a lot of those was just what's his name being a complete idiot and making bad turnovers. So let's hope that they can figure that part out. And I mean, obviously, Callahan made that very clear. He was very vocal and was pissed off. There's bonehead mistakes. We'll get into that. The first thing I want to get into is the Titans front office blunder. They started this offseason by dismissing Ron Carthon. Roll back to 2024. They fire. This is like an all-time bad stretch in 2024. Fire Mike Vrabel, depart from Derrick Henry, depart from Algier, depart from Danico Autry. Obviously, Derrick Henry went and played very meaningful football for the Ravens, and Danico Autry and Algier are very good players on the Texans, which is funny. Then the spending spree. L'Jarius Sneed, you traded for him, and then you paid him. He was a shell of himself. I don't even know if he's on the field. To look back, did he play this year? What happened?
That was one of the most like significant offseason names to leave the Chiefs, and I feel like I didn't hear a single thing about him. He was legitimately a lockdown in Kansas City, and he fell off the face of the map last year.
Definitely.
The face of the earth.
That's a big one. They paid Calvin Ridley $75 million. You know how I feel about Calvin Ridley. He's just, since the gambling situation and taking a year off, he just looks different. Tony Pollard to a big contract. I love Tony Pollard, but maybe spending your resources on a running back probably wasn't the best idea. You get a Wouzier in at corner, Kenneth Murray in at linebacker, Tyler Boyd in at wide receiver. You look at a lot of these moves and what was wrong with this football team throughout the course of the year. Why did they go so big on some of these like quote unquote key name free agents that were kind of a swing and a miss? That felt like these guys, they overpaid for these guys, which when a lot of these guys are probably meant for a roster that is on the brink of a championship, not one of the worst rosters, as a key highest paid guy and being the highlight of it. I think that's kind of where Carthon misread the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the Titans were anywhere close to being on the verge of even being a playoff team, but like part of me respects them trying to get talent in the building to see kind of what you have with a new head coach and, and a quarterback who Will Levis. I look at it this way: like he played in 8 games last year, in 2023. Like at this point, he's basically a rookie still. I feel like in order to see what you really have, you have to put some talent around a guy like that, and they went out and did that. although they did overspend, that's how you kind of have to do it, I think, in order to get some names in the building in a situation that is probably not going to be great. You're going to have to overspend. Um, but I think they have a much better idea as to what Will Levis is now
And then, but
after a season and a half.
a lot of these guys too, like Quandre Diggs, Jamal Adams, like Jamal
They're
Adams.
all free agents though. Like
Yeah,
Quandre
but
Diggs a free agent, Tyler Boyd's a free agent.
all of
Like,
these moves though felt like that's like this is like what the Chiefs should do, or like this is like what the Eagles should do, like taking a shot
yeah,
on like a veteran guy who like might not be good. It felt like these were all like one. I think the Calvin Ridley contract
bad. That's
is
a
bad,
legitimate bad. Yeah.
and I just obviously we'll see this play out this year, and maybe he'll have a bounce back year, but it felt like a big misread of where they were at in the process of roster building, and to spend all of this money on these guys who, like Tyler Boyd, Awuzie, like those guys have like played with Callahan when they were on the Bengals when they made a deep run, and it felt like that he wanted guys like that in the building to kind of like set culture. But like when your quarterback is as bad, like the Mason Rudolph, Will Levis experience is like definitely one of the worst two-headed monsters in the league.
It's brutal. And I'm looking at it right now in 2025. 31-year-old Calvin Ridley has a cap hit of $28 million. So
Yeah, it hurts.
he's their most expensive player. And I don't
It
think that
stinks.
that's great to have Calvin Ridley, 31-year-old wide receiver, as your most expensive player on the Tennessee Titans.
I think you're right. And I think that's why Ron Cathorn's fired. So
Yeah.
good take.
I'm glad we're on the same page.
So in free agency, they're not losing anyone notable, really. Jerome Baker, Sebastian Joseph Day, Nick Folk, Quandre Diggs. No one notable in any way, shape, or form. It's just those are older guys. They're rotational guys at best. And I don't think that they're losing any sleep over having those guys exit the building.
Yeah, they're losing 2 guys on defense and they're losing 3 offensive starters. I have the Westbrook Akine is also a free agent, an unrestricted free agent. Him and Tyler Boyd and Dylan Redun's on offense. So and that guy sucked. So they're probably happy that he's leaving.
My question to you is Brian Callahan still taking the lead as the head coach. I kind of like how fiery he is.
I
And like
like
how
that he
locked
got
in he
pissed
is.
off at Will Levis a lot.
Yeah,
That was
because
honestly so fun.
he should have been. And I think people like were like, you can't be that hard. Like, but why not? Like, why not be that hard on somebody? Like he was bad this year. So there's meat left on the bone for Brian Callahan for me. I want to see
I
what he's
agree.
capable of. I don't think that he was in any risk of losing his job this season.
No, I don't either. And I think you have to coach a guy like that tough. I think that's just how I would want to be coached. I want yelled at.
Yeah.
And it seems like Brian Callahan cares. It seems like he wants to win here in Tennessee. And like, he's not going to put up with any nonsense. And when your quarterback is a meme for 6 straight weeks to start the season, like,
It's rough.
you're going to be pissed off as a head coach.
A big hire that was made, and I feel like maybe a little bit under the radar, and maybe it'll get talked about more as we see this Titans roster develop, was them stealing Brett Veach's right-hand man, Mike Borgazzi from the Chiefs, who you've seen what the Chiefs have done since the Patrick Mahomes era has started, to be able to get really good talent in, to be able to get talent out of the building when the time is right, and then replacing the assets from the Tyreek Hill trade into a bunch of good young defensive players that have elongated the Patrick Mahomes era even longer than it probably should have to begin with. And I think that that's really impressive. And I think the Borgazzi was a key point in that entire rebuild, from getting Mahomes to the second iteration of it and to extend their championship window even more. To lose a guy like that, but to also get somebody in your building like that, it has to mean a little something, right?
Yeah, I feel like any time that you can bring in a guy from that Chiefs era, I mean, besides Eric Bieniemy, which I still don't understand how that happened, it feels like anytime you can get a guy in that type of situation that has had that much success building a roster and taking those chances and getting rid of guys, like getting rid of Tyreek Hill was such a ballsy move for them, and they still ended up winning a Super Bowl. That two Super Bowls, like that's not like that's a big deal. And he timed it perfectly. He's done a great job of putting together rosters, and he's done a good job like trying to maximize, even though it hasn't necessarily worked with like the DeAndre Hopkins, like some of the wide receiver aspects of it. I still have to respect the fact that he's going out there and noticing, all right, we got Patrick Mahomes. We got to get some playmakers around him. And I would hope that they can figure out the right guys in Tennessee.
What's aged the worst of all time was after DeAndre Hopkins caught 2 touchdown passes in a football game, is he immediately went to Twitter and tweeted out a picture of Tom Brady and Randy Moss.
Oh God.
That was the worst thing of what's aged the worst this entire season. That's so funny.
Yeah, that's brutal.
I do have a theory about what this Titans off season could potentially look like, though. And where they sit, obviously they sit with the number 1 pick in the draft. If you're interested to hear about it,
I would love to. The Tennessee Titans, you're on the clock.
Chad Brinker, the president of football operations, said we won't pass on a generational talent with the first overall pick. I think that we look at this draft, and I think you might agree with me. I think that there right now in this draft, I think that there's one generational talent that is like deemed generational talent in the top 10, and that's Abdul Carter. I think now, when I hear that, I hear we don't love any of the quarterbacks who are up for grabs. That's how I interpret this quote from their football ops guy is 100%. We don't like any of the quarterbacks in this draft. If you do, the first overall pick is up for grabs if you guys like somebody as much as you want to move up to number 1 overall and take it. That's how I look at it. Do you disagree with that, or what do you think?
No, I think as much as I would love to see Abdul Carter be the number 1 overall pick, I think that's awesome as a Penn State fan. I think it makes the most sense for Tennessee to move out of this position. I don't think that either one of these 3 quarterbacks, I'm putting Jackson Dart in there now as well because he's been getting an ungodly amount of hype. Yeah. I don't think any 3 of those guys are generational quarterbacks by any sense of the word. So I think as much as you might not love, if you're Brian Callahan, you might not love Will Levis as your quarterback. Maybe you can go out and sign somebody, but I don't think taking a guy. I don't think taking a guy first overall is a quarterback first overall is the best move for the Tennessee Titans. I think you trade it away. I think you get draft capital. I think there's teams between
that's 2 to 6. Let's go into it. Draft order: Tennessee Titans, Cleveland, Giants, New England, Jacksonville, Vegas, and I'm adding the Jets into this newly because they're moving on from Aaron Rodgers. That's 5 of the 7 teams that need quarterbacks in the top 7 picks. So if 5 of these teams, and I counted Tennessee as needing a quarterback in this as well, they've come out and said that they're not interested in any of the quarterbacks so far because none of them are generational. So saying that you're not interested in the quarterback leaves an opening for these other teams to come up and get their guy. I don't think Cleveland goes and jumps them. I think that they're just like, we'll take whoever falls to us at this point. But I do think that they're in the market for a quarterback. There's 2 teams that I think make the most sense to move up and get this quarterback right now. Tom Brady and the Las Vegas Raiders have already been making splashy moves, I would describe it as.
Yeah.
I think that I said this to you earlier today, actually, when we were texting. I think that the right rookie quarterback put into the Raiders situation, like, isn't the worst in the world. They have a left tackle. Their run game is awful. That's something that's going to have to be addressed. But having like sure-handed weapons like Brock Bowers, who's generational, and like Jacoby Myers, who like legitimately just doesn't drop passes, I think is a positive for like a young quarterback. And there are worst situations in the NFL than landing with like a historic head coach like Pete Carroll, OC like Chip Kelly, guys who have been around the game forever, and some offensive weapons to at least like alleviate some pressure. So I think that the way that this offseason's moving so far, where there's pressure from Max Crosby to not be in rebuild mode, like all of this stuff that's going around, I think that now that Brady is taking charge, is like being the guy, I think him going up and moving up to number one overall makes a ton of sense, because I think that that's what he's in the business of doing right now, is making statements and moving up and taking somebody who he has a good relationship with, and that's Shador Sanders, because they are known to be training with each other. The text after one of the games where Brady texted Shador Sanders being like, "Don't be satisfied yet." They clearly have that relationship. I think Brady, when he's looking for a quarterback, he is looking for work ethic more than anything. And
Yeah.
I think that you can critique Shador Sanders on a lot of things. I don't think that you can critique his work ethic. I think that he puts in the work, and he's that guy.
Yeah.
That's one team that I think. Do you have anything you want to add on the Raiders? I'm going to say one more team, just short, and then I think you have one as well, correct?
Yeah, I do. I think the Raiders makes a lot of sense too. I don't know what type of draft capital they currently have that
Mhm.
they can give up. Let me just take a look here.
And real
Oh
quick
shit, they have a lot actually.
for the Tennessee Titans, real quick, what I'm sure you're sitting here being like, well, why would we move out of first? We need to take a quarterback, blah, blah, blah. You guys have $50 million in cap space. And I think
Yeah,
that there is a clear name on the market that kind of fits the mold. And I think if you put him in Tennessee, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I think Sam Darnold I think the Tennessee Titans is a Sam Darnold team. They have the
I think they
cap
could
space
be.
to pay him. And if you move out of this pick, you can get better players in, you can get more draft capital in, and you have a quarterback who's proven to be at least competent. So, and putting him in with Brian Callahan, who's made Joe Burrow look really, really good, who obviously has play calling expertise and can get the best out of guys. I think so, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I think the amount of cap space certainly plays a good role. And I think the price on Sam Darnold went down, obviously, based off of those last few games that he had towards as the season came to a close at the end of this year. Um, the one thing that I also wanted to talk about too was it's not Tennessee related, but it is quarterback related, and it's the Giants, but I guess we can kind of save that for later.
Yeah, we'll save that one. I think the Giants are in a spot where they'll probably take what falls to them as well. I think it's really the teams who are back in this draft who are like starting to panic a little bit. And another team that I think that wasn't on my list and I added it late was, does Woody Johnson just go and just be like, we're trading for the number one overall pick. I don't care what it takes. We're just going to
Yeah.
go up and grab a quarterback because we need to. And this is a shit show. And like, let's do this. I could see that happening just because it's the New York Giants and they've been starving for so long to get somebody in the building. And I don't know. And the Rodgers situation just didn't work out the way that they wanted it to. Is that a possible team that you could think that you could be like, fuck it, like let's just make the splashiest play possible. Let's go up and get the number one overall pick. We need it for New York.
My only thought to that is like it depends on who you like the most at the
Mhm.
three out of these three guys. Like if
Yeah.
you're the Jets and you're sitting there at 7 and you're like, "Wow, I really like another like I really like there's another like just say they really like who's the kid from Michigan, the defensive lineman.
Oh yeah, I know
Say
who
they
you're talking
really say they're sitting there that I don't know if he even would fall past that. Like I think other teams are just equally as interested in him as well. Mason Graham, I believe. Um, while I could see a situation where they just let it fall to him,
I don't think
they take him
interior.
at 7, and then they see the rest of this first round play out and are like, "Wow, okay, nobody took Jackson Dart. There was a lot of smoke around him. the teams that got their quarterbacks, unless they trade back into the first round, you could see Jackson Dart fall to the second round.
I think that there's a world where we see 3 quarterbacks taken in the top 3 picks. I do. I know that might sound crazy, but like we're also living in a world where last
Yeah,
year
this
7
is
quarterbacks
crazy.
or 6 quarterbacks were taken in the top 12 picks. Like I think that the top 7 teams so desperately need a quarterback. Like you said, like the Jets might take Mason Graham. Like they don't need interior line help. They have Quentin Williams. Like there is one glaring hole on that
I
team, and that's a quarterback. So even if like the teams above them pass, I think that we see Shador go in the top 7. I think we definitely see Cam Ward go in the top 7. And then I think that whatever quarterback is left at 7 for the Jets, I think that they will just take it. I feel like
I say Mason Graham because I say in terms of like best available. Like I think he could hypothetically be available, and like if you're looking at it, it's probably not the worst thing in the world to pair Mason Graham with, I forget the defensive lineman. You just said his name. Quinion Williams. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to pair those two guys together. I mean, we just saw the success that the Eagles had with this very strong defensive line. Like, there's worse things that you could be in, especially if you don't love the third option at quarterback, if that's where you're at, if you're the New York Jets.
yeah, I agree. I just like I said, there's one glaring hole on that
It
roster.
is. Yeah.
Everything else, I feel like you got good wide receivers, you got a good running back, the O line's okay, the defense is still intact. Like you need a quarterback, and I feel like at some point you're gonna have to take him. Sam Darnold's not going back to the
I
Jets.
was just going to say he's not going back there. That'll bring up, he'll actually get PTSD.
So is there any other team that I'm missing that could be in business with the Tennessee Titans for the number 1 overall pick that you were thinking?
I said this to you the other day, and I don't know if they'll do this. I don't think we've seen them be aggressive enough, but the Pittsburgh Steelers are a team that desperately need a quarterback. They only have
For
Skylar
sure.
Thompson on their roster as of right now. So probably not the situation that you want to be in starting the season. Obviously the offseason legit just started, but like they don't have a first or second string quarterback at this point. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I know it seems like they never get aggressive, but there has to be a certain point where they just get tired of taking these gap quarterbacks and eventually want to restart their future, because they're just going to be continuously sitting at this spot of, all right, yeah, great. We went 10-7. We made the wild card. We're here at 20, 19, 20, we're here at 19, 20 or 21. Like, we either have to get aggressive and take a quarterback, and I don't know if this is necessarily the right class to do it. I think next year could lead to more options, but that's a team where I would like to see them get more aggressive
Yeah.
when it comes to a quarterback.
I'm completely with you. I just think the Steelers are so lost all the time. I have no idea what their plan is and what they're going to do. So,
Well, I have who I think is, if he ends up playing this year, I think I have my quarterback for them, but I could
yeah,
save that.
yeah, I think we should save it. You obviously have somebody that you have in mind. I think he's probably cooked. Are the
Oh, he's
Steelers
definitely cooked, but he's perfect for the
are the
Steelers.
Steelers that stupid? We'll decide that on a later date. We'll talk about
Yes,
that.
they
Yeah,
are.
they are.
They signed the two worst statistical quarterbacks in the NFL last year that started games.
I think that the where the Titans are in this draft at 1 and remaining with those teams in the top 7. The reason why I'm taking the Steelers out of this
Yeah.
is you are still going to be able to land a Mason Graham. You're still going to be able to potentially land a Travis Hunter, and you're still going to be able to potentially land an Abdul Carter,
Yeah.
regardless. So I think that is the sweet spot of those teams where it's like, these are the teams that I want to do business with. I think the Browns and the Giants are a lock to take a quarterback. What other team is that hungry for a quarterback to go up to number 1? Or is it the Titans?
Two things. I agree with this with removing the Steelers from this. It's more so I just want them to get more aggressive because they're just going to be in this purgatory of 10-7 until Mike Tomlin leaves. Um, I think with the Cleveland Browns looking to trade Myles Garrett, I could see them not taking a quarterback here and filling that edge position with a much younger generational talent.
But they need a quarterback more than anybody.
What do they care? They
I
don't.
think
They don't. They're not a great run organization, and they're about to trade away one of the best defensive players in the NFL
I
for a
agree.
much cheaper, younger version.
I agree. I think
Sign Jameis.
I think I don't know. I think Jameis is probably done. I
He'll be
think
a backup, but
I think Cam
I just
Ward
love him.
is. I think Cam Ward seems to be the consensus pick at 2. Consensus.
I'm just not writing that down in pen yet. I'm
Yeah.
not ready to like fully say that I think that's who's going to be the number 1 pick or the number 2 pick yet. I do agree they need a quarterback, but
As it stands today, consensus feels it's Abdul Carter, Cam Ward, and then at 3, Shador Sanders or Jackson Dart. That's what consensus feels like currently.
I low key love Jackson Dart on the Giants.
Yeah, of course. Listen, we'll get into that another day because the
Okay.
Giants are 3 on this list, and we'll get into that soon. My question is, what do you want to see the Tennessee Titans do with the number 1 overall pick? Would you like to see them just say, screw it, we're taking Shador Sanders, screw it, we're taking Cam Ward? Do you want to see them trade the pick? What do you think is the best move for the Tennessee Titans at this point?
I think the Las Vegas Raiders would end up overpaying. Las Vegas Raiders. I think the Raiders would overpay to get up to the first overall pick to take Shador. So I think if I'm Tennessee, I listen to all the offers. I think I probably end up trading it. As
Yeah.
great as it would be to get Abdul Carter, I think he's going to be great. They have holes that they need to fill
So you're
elsewhere,
fielding
and
calls.
100%. How can you
Yeah.
not? Because I'm not sold on any of these 3 quarterbacks. All 3 of these quarterbacks have the potential to be Will Levis, is kind of how I
Yeah.
look at it in the Tennessee Titans situation.
Yeah. And why take somebody like that at number 1 when you can get out of the situation and maybe there's greener pastures somewhere else? And the only thing is, it's not very often that you get to pick number 1 in the draft. So we'll see how that plays out. And go ahead.
It could very well be they pick number 1 in the draft if they don't bring in a quarterback next year.
Correct.
They could say, screw it. We're just going to, we could just not do anything. We'll run it back with Will Levis, Mason Rudolph, put our fans through hell, put everyone through hell. But we come out of 2025 into the 2026 draft with the number 1 overall pick, and we're looking at Arch Manning, Drew Allard, Nico, like all these guys.
Yeah.
Like that's a way more intriguing draft than this one from a quarterback perspective.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I'm right with you. I want to see them move this pick. I think it'll be very interesting to see what they do. My question is to definitely, if Tennessee fans get this video and grab a hold of it, what do they want to see happen with this pick? What direction do you want to see this new GM come in and take? We highlighted it. They have a lot of people on this roster. We don't know how good this roster is, but is bringing 1 quarterback in there, which we've seen it happen. How quick the Commanders have turned around, how quick the Texans have turned around by just adding a quarterback into the mix and them being special. Is it possible that this is one of those rosters that if you get the right quarterback in here early, like a young quarterback, can this be the next great team, great roster to kind of to catapult? It's always something that's looming now that we've seen it happen the last 2 years.
Yeah, I think that's the internal battle now that you have to make if you're a front office is, are we going to provide a legitimate analysis and a legitimate evaluation of this team to the point where do we think we're a quarterback away? And to be fair, does that even matter anymore?
Yeah.
There's no way in hell that the Commanders sat there and thought, we're a quarterback away from playing in an NFC championship.
We both didn't think that, like, at all.
There's no way that they looked themselves in the eye and said, yeah, if we get Jaden Daniels on this football team, we will play for an NFC championship.
Yeah, year one.
There's no way. There's no way that anybody thought that inside of that organization. I don't think that anybody thinks that in Tennessee, but like, it can happen. I do think that Jaden Daniels was head and shoulders above all three of these quarterbacks talent-wise.
For sure. Yeah.
But who knows?
Yeah. Who knows?
You get in the right situation, you get the right, like, you find your Cliff Kingsbury, maybe that's Brian Callahan in Tennessee, and who knows, you got Cam Ward there, or you get Jackson Dart, or you get Shadur Sanders. Like, who knows? It honestly, this last season, more so than the Texans getting CJ Stroud, has made everything change for these front offices, I think.
It has to, you have to take it into account, because things could drastically change overnight and could change the way that you team build, even too. Like, you see what the Texans did this season by like acquiring Danielle Hunter, like acquiring Stephon Diggs, like getting some older people in the building. Same with the Commanders by like we laughed at them for getting Austin Eckler and Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz being like the retirement homes there. And they all played very meaningful football for the Commanders this past season. So it could happen so quick. And I think that definitely, like, the guys who have come into the league over the past few years, it's a big consideration point for all these front offices picking at the top of the draft.
It is. And I think that we're also going to see that play a role, like, negatively. I think teams are going to take chances on guys that might not get taken otherwise. Like, I think if we just had the draft with like the Kenny Pickett and the Malik Willis class, I think we could see that redraft, if we were putting it this year, go a lot different.
100%. Yeah.
Just because of the amount of
the quarterback boom.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. So, yeah, I think they end up trading the first overall pick, though. I'm not sold enough on any of these guys at quarterback yet.
Perfect. All right. Well, hey, Tennessee Titans fans, let us know what you think. Good episode today. I'm going to put the full thing up on Spotify and then break up the rest on clips on YouTube throughout the week. So, good episode. I'll talk to you later.
Go Birds.
Yeah, congrats on the Super Bowl.
White cloud.